Welcome to Superhero Pow. I'm your host nerd, Tom Fremke. Hey, how you doing today? You know, I came across something pretty funny the other day myself, and I've kind of deemed it in my own head as like the most woke thing ever. Now, I'm not somebody who's anti-woke and gets upset about, different minorities being highlighted in any kind of fiction or media or, on either side, on the creator side or on the content side. Doesn't bother me if characters are non-straight white men. But just like everything else, things can go overboard sometime, and, it's just kind of funny. And so that's why when I finally got around to watching the Legion of Superheroes DVD movie, or I don't even know if, I'm not even sure what to call these things anymore. They're not movies because they're not releasing them in theaters. And, they're not being made for TV. You have to rent them, but there's no DVDs. So, I don't know, is there a term for that now? Movies not meant for theater or broadcast or streaming. They're just meant for rental? Rental movie? Is that what we should call them? Anyway, you know me, I'm a big DC fan. So, I want to go see the Legion of Superheroes with Supergirl. And as I was watching the film, it just really struck me that, wow, this movie is like the most woke thing I've ever seen. See, the movie starts off with, I'm going to have some spoilers, so prepare yourself. If you haven't seen the movie and you want to see the movie, maybe just, skip this episode. But if you're okay with it, or you've already seen it, then we shall proceed. So the movie starts with Kara, before she was Supergirl, hanging out on Krypton with her mom, training to be, a peacekeeper of Krypton. Thankfully, her father never shows up in the film as Krypton explodes because, that would just be weird, right? Why would Kara have a dad when the world is coming to an end, trying to figure out what will happen to her? Mom's got this. She's got this. There's no reason for the dad to show up. I'm sure he's got other things to do. So anyway, they ship her off to Earth, and they tell her that, she's got to take care of her baby cousin, Kal-El, when they get to Earth. Well, of course, as we all know the story, things happen, and Kal-El gets there first, grows up into a man, and then Kara shows up still a teenager. And now, oh boy, it's rough. Tough girl Kara, training to be a protector, now has to play second fiddle to her boy cousin. Men oppression is everywhere. But, Superman's okay for a guy, and so he gets her into the Justice League. But then, of course, another man has to come forward and say she's not good enough for the Justice League. Batman. Batman's like, this Supergirl, she's no good. She doesn't have enough training. She's, she can't be in the league because she's a danger to herself and others. Which I got to say is kind of strange coming from Batman. I'm not really sure how many Robins are in the Tomorrowverse version of these DC movies, but you think Batman, with all his Robins, would cut her a little slack. And just stepping outside of the silliness of the wokeness into the movie itself, this is where I kind of felt like, well, this movie's just, kind of bad as well. Because, Supergirl flies down to fight Solomon Grundy. In the process of the fight, Grundy breaks a lot of things, and then Batman blames her. I don't recall anything in the fight scene where Kara's inexperience caused collateral damage of any kind. It was all Grundy, and somehow that's her fault? Yeah, I didn't get that. But anyway, let's get back to the fun wokeness. So, Superman decides to ship Kara off to the Legion of Superheroes and to the future. This way, she can hang around teenagers with powers like herself and, get better at superheroing or whatever. This is where the movie kind of becomes your typical young adult school romance danger story. Which is fine. If it's done well, I'll happily watch that. But of course, the male teacher Timberwolf has a problem with this new female student. But, whatever, that's pretty typical. But the big kicker, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Now, this is the spoilers. Seriously, this is the real spoiler. This is the real spoiler, because this is a spoiler. You're ready for it, right? You ready? Are you ready for it? Stop shaking your head no. Okay, the spoiler is the bad guy is Mon-El. Yeah, Mon-El. Basically, the Superman of the Legion of Superheroes is the bad guy in the movie. I mean, he's a flunky of the Dark Circle or whatever, but the point is, after they do a little romance triangle fun where Kara is in between Brainiac 5 and Mon-El, because Mon-El is perfect and Brainiac 5 is this weird little guy that she kind of falls in love with, but she should probably be with the perfect guy, Mon-El, right? Well, but Mon-El's a bad guy, okay? So she chose right with Brainiac 5. Of course, as a comic book person, I look at this and go, as I was saying, Mon-El, that's your bad guy. Now, I'm sure the people who made the film will be like, well, we wanted it to be a surprise. We wanted to make it a surprise. You had no idea Mon-El was coming. And it's like, all right, okay, fine. You surprised me. But, you did a lot of stuff as a fan of these comic books that I didn't like in this movie. And they're like, well, we didn't make it for you. We made it for the new audience. Well, if you made it for the new audience, you could have left the bad guy a bad guy and not turned Mon-El into a bad guy, huh? They don't know who the bad guys of the Legion of Superheroes are. They'd be just surprised if anybody was the bad guy. But you made it Mon-El. And the only reason I can think you made it Mon-El is because he's the only white guy in the whole movie. Everybody else is, from the vast color of all the different creeds and colors and races of the Legion of Superheroes, the bad guy is the white guy. And so it's just too on the nose. All right, I hear you saying, oh, but Bouncing Boy. What about Bouncing Boy? He's a white guy too. Okay, sure. That's their get out of jail card, I suppose. But, he is overweight, so that kind of puts him he's a minority too. It just came off as funny to me. I'm definitely not somebody who gets outraged and upset about this, but when it's so on the nose like that, it's just funny. It's like clearly you're making choices based on stuff that doesn't have to do with telling a good story. Now, mind you, on some level, I would say, okay, sure, fine. It's a good story to make Mon-El the bad guy. But when you consider the history of Mon-El, no, you should be whacked with a ruler. Don't make Mon-El a bad guy. And so the fact that he's just, the only white guy in the whole show, then it's just comedy. Then what's kind of put me in this mood of the most woke thing ever is I was at the library the other day looking for books for my kids, and I saw this superhero book, the DC Superhero Girls Showdown in Space. For those of you who are unfamiliar, DC Superhero Girls is a branding cartoon line focusing more on the female superheroes of the DC universe, but, making them more YA-friendly by sticking them all in high school. It's kind of hilarious that they made Amanda Waller the principal. The first season is fine. It's definitely a girls' show. I've watched a couple of the movies, a couple of episodes, and it's fine, for what it is. It's just, not for me, but I'm not upset that it's not for me. That's fine. Second season, they've kind of reworked it and turned it more into a general audience, more cartoony show. And, it's the same cast. It's, the girls in high school, again, with a couple of guys. And the first show had a couple of guys, too. But the second season is absolutely hilarious. I recommend it to anybody. If you like superheroes, if you like funny cartoons, watch the second season of DC Superhero Girls. It's hilarious. It's the best. Watching Batgirl tell everybody she knows how to store dead bodies because she's from Gotham City. Yeah, the show is magic. But back to this little book I found. So Teenage Wonder Woman, Teenage Supergirl, which I guess is, I don't know, is that an oxymoron of some sort? Or self-evident, maybe? And, well, again, I was about to say Teenage Starfire, but, again, that's, she kind of is. I'll stop thinking hard about that and just, okay, so those three characters go to some sort of space conference. The Model United Planets meeting happens every year. delegates from schools all over the galaxy get together. I gotta say, I'm not really sure what in the world the Model United Planets organization is. It's like we're United Planets, but we're model planets? Do United Model Planets? Should it have been that? We're all good planets that follow the rules? But the Model United Planets. I don't know, it just sounds weird to me. Anyway, when they show you all the pictures of the going-ons in the story and all the representatives from all the schools showing up, there's not one boy in the whole book. Not one single boy got chosen from all the planets in this galaxy or wherever this pool is coming from. Not one boy was chosen to go to this thing. It was all girls. So, I mean, I guess boys, well, I mean, I guess it's true that boys suck. So that makes sense. But still, it's a little funny. But now I have to confess, I'm wrong. I misled you. There is a boy in the book, because of course there is. He's the bad guy. Mongol shows up to disrupt the proceedings, and then, the girls all kick his butt, which is fine because, they're superheroes. Well, except the one weird thing about DC superhero girls is a lot of the villains are on the good guy's side, and I don't fully... So Mongol and other villains, the important thing is that you're a girl, not necessarily whether you're evil or not. But I hope now you can see why I find this all funny. It's just so bizarre that I find it amusing. I don't know. Now, I suppose somebody could be saying like, hey, Tom, you're off your rocker. Stay in your lane. This used to happen all the time when it was boys only. Only boys went to the Model United Planets conferences, and nobody batted an eye at it. Well, that's a fair point, except for one thing. There's usually always a girl involved because if there were no girls involved, it would be considered sexist. And, nobody wanted to be called sexist, so everybody made sure there was a girl. About the only thing I can think of where there was no girl would be like the original Superman cartoon. Supergirl never showed up in it by Filmation, but Aquaman, Mira showed up a lot, and Batman, Batgirl showed up a lot, and Super Friends had Wonder Woman. So, there's always a girl. I'm not going to argue that it wasn't male-centric. But, it'd be sexist not to have girls, so there's always a girl. And there's no way in this male-centric story where it's all guys that when the villain shows up, that the villain is a girl. That's just not happening. It's going to be another guy. So that's why it makes it even more funny to me in this story that it's all these girls and the only guy that shows up is the bad guy, and how everything's about messaging these days. And it's like, what message are we sending here? Now, let's step back from that a little bit because I don't necessarily believe in all that stuff. I know some people believe in that stuff, and I think they just take things a little too seriously. That's why, from my standpoint, I'm just taking this. It's funny. It's weird, and it's funny. Definitely not choices I would be making. But, I'm not writing the story. It's not my story, so it's not my call. Reminds me of an old story from Buck Rogers, the old TV show with Gil Gerard and Aaron Gray. Apparently, one of the scripts called for Aaron Gray's character, Wilma, to save Buck Rogers. But the actor Gil Gerard thought that would make Buck look weak, so he said, nope, not happening, take it out of the script. So they took it out of the script where Wilma saves Buck. And to me, that's just equally ridiculous. The male hero can't be saved by the girl. Wilma's just as confident as Buck is. I think I said confident. Didn't I say confident? I meant competent. Wilma is just as competent as Buck Rogers is for the most part. I mean, the hero's always got a little extra special sauce, so to speak, because that's why they're the hero of the show. But it's just dumb that they wouldn't let Wilma save Buck. But I don't know. What do you think about all this nonsense? Is it not nonsense? Is this important to make sure you... I don't know. I would assume you wouldn't say, well, it's important to make sure we tell stories where white guys are the bad guys, and they're the bad guys kind of because they're white guys. That seems weird. But, if you think that's a good thing, definitely let me know, because I would like to hear that ideology explained. Or, are you on the complete opposite side that, you agree that Buck Rogers should never be saved by Wilma, and that this is an effrontery to the very concept of what a man is, and is evil in its own right. Kind of would like to hear that explained too, because I don't get it. But anyway, let me know if you have any feelings about this, or, if you've seen something that you thought was the wokest thing ever. And if you could, just, for comedic values, let's not get too mad at each other for this silly topic. But thanks for listening, and I'm going to make sure to try to put up some pictures of the things I've been talking about. And if you could be so kind to like and subscribe, I'll do this some more. Until then, take care of yourself out there.